I caught up on some movies from 2021, and I watched a new movie from 2022, and I just want to quickly talk about them with you guys really fast. And so the first movie I saw was Nightmare Alley, which is directed by Guillermo del Toro, who's made a lot of interesting movies. He's made Pan's Labyrinth. The most recent movie is Shape of Water, a romance movie with a fish man and a woman. Anyways, he came out with a new movie, Nightmare Alley, and it's a more grungy, dark take on sort of the carnival world. It's set during the 1920s, 1930s, or 1940s, and so it features basically like we go behind the scenes and we're like watching this character sort of learn the world. And so we kind of see him do some interesting stuff where he's like, he creates like schemes and stuff he teams up with this person and creates schemes where they sort of, scam people out of stuff. And it goes in a really interesting and kind of dark direction that I was not expecting. Overall, the movie featured some beautiful cinematography and amazing production design that I thought really benefited the movie. It does feature a much slower take. It's adapted from the movie from like 1953, and that movie's like 90 minutes, and this movie's like 2 hours and 30 minutes. It is a tad bit slow. Sometimes you might like doze off a little bit, but overall it grabs your attention just because of the story and the characters that are featured in the movie. Bradley Cooper does an amazing job as the main character in this movie, and all the other actors as well. They did fantastic. The film also gets pretty violent towards the end of the movie, and so I'll just say like this movie is rated R, so it is one of those things where it goes in that direction. You're like, oh, that was kind of a lot. And so, yeah, but overall, though, I found the movie to be very interesting. And the world that Guillermo del Toro built, the world of this carnival, we see all these people. Some of these people that are kind of messed up, manipulating people, capturing people that are just not, they're kind of innocent. But the ending to this movie is something that was one of the better endings of the movies that I saw last year. I'd give this movie an 8.5 out of 10. The most recent movie I saw, though, was Kimi. Came out in 2022. This is the first 2022 movie I think I've seen next to Living. But this movie is directed by Steven Soderberg and written by David Koepp. He wrote Jurassic Park and a ton of other movies. And Steven Soderberg directed a bunch of movies, including the Ocean's 11 trilogy, or the Ocean's trilogy. He made Magic Mike. He also directed Logan Lucky, and he's also a really good short film or low budget filmmaker. He's made movies on like $100,000 budget, and he's filmed them on iPhones, which I feel like is a big inspiration because it's like this guy shows that it's not that, or it's difficult, but anyone can make a movie no matter what they have. And that's interesting. I like this guy, and so he's made this new movie. It's set in Seattle, my home turf, kind of place. So it was cool to see the shots that are in this movie, and then I kind of recognize the locations and the area. But this movie is the first movie to be set during a pandemic, and so, or during the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, and I thought that was interesting because this was a movie that doesn't take that in a political direction. It just, that is the environment, and because the character is an agoraphobe, she's scared of going outside, and so that's an interesting environment for her. And so what was interesting is some of the creative directions that Steven Soderbergh went was very unique and worked for the film and for the character, because when she eventually does go outside, they film it in this really interesting way. It's like they film a super wide and interesting close-ups, and the way that Zoe Kravitz, who's the main character, the way that she was acting in the movie, I thought that worked really well. The combination of the direction and the way that she was acting, I really liked that. I thought it was very creative. This movie also is able to explore all these characters and is able to tell the story all visually, just from her on the computer and her getting phone calls and text messages and video chats and stuff. And it's interesting because that's how, normally we live in life, but we're able to understand this character based on the different things that happen to her. And so I thought that was a really a really good way of directing and telling the story that worked very well. This movie, for some reason, also has Buzz from Home Alone, and his name is Kevin in this movie, and he plays a creep, essentially, and it was hilarious, his part in the movie, and I thought he worked really well. It's a very fast-paced movie, and it has really good direction, and it's also rated R, so there's some content in there, and it goes in an interesting direction towards the end that is a little unexpected, but was still entertaining and very fun. And so, if you're interested in this kind of movie, it's very fast. It's under 90 minutes. I'd recommend this movie. It's pretty fun and very interesting. And so I give this movie a 7.5 out of 10. The last movie I saw was Being the Ricardos. I was not looking forward to this movie just because I have not heard good things about it. And so I watched it. Not that good. Yeah, so it's directed by Aaron Sorkin, who's a very famous writer. He's very well known for his fast-paced dialogue and really interesting, interactions between certain characters. And so this movie has a great script, but the directing in this movie is a little off. Let me just backtrack a little bit. This movie is essentially we go behind the scenes of the show I Love Lucy, and so we're experiencing essentially the behind the scenes of one of the craziest weeks of the show. And so we're basically watching Lucy and Desi and all these characters interacting, and there's a lot of stuff going on. There's like, crime stuff that are happening, illegal things happening in the background, which for some reason did not feel as threatening or important to the plot as I feel like it should be for some reason. But this movie does have interesting characters. You have writers and producers, and they're all I really liked their interactions in the movie. I thought it was really funny, and they felt like people who existed, and they're actually talking to each other, and they're actually having real conversations. And so that was the aspect that I really liked in the movie, and also the acting. Nicole Kidman and Javier Bardem, they were good, I guess. Like they both got nominated for Oscars. I wouldn't say Academy Award level acting, but they were interesting, and they did make the movie more watchable for me. But the movie is an hour or is 130 minutes, an hour or 2 hours and 10 minutes. And you definitely, at least for me, I felt the runtime. And it's weird because like the conclusion to the whole events, the crazy events that are happening, eventually they're on the day where they're shooting the episode. And so the conclusion to all of that just did not feel like there was a lot of stakes, or like it was resolved, but it just didn't feel impactful. When it was done, you're like, oh, okay, it's done now. Because of that, that is just to the not benefit of Aaron Sorkin's directing. He just doesn't have that oomph that would make the story good, or make the story as good as like the script is, or make the directing as good as the script is. Also, he cut in like interviews with some original producers and writers, and I just it felt kind of weird and a little out of place and kind of random. And so I'm glad this movie is getting, I guess, low ratings, but I'm also not glad because I feel bad for the filmmaker. But once again, it's not like a bad movie. It's just not right. Like if it had a different director, it probably would have been more interesting. But once again, he's trying, and I'm still gonna watch Aaron Sorkin direct a movie or watch his latest movie, even though it might not be technically good. I'm still interested in seeing what he has to do because the scripts are always great. I like the idea of going backstage and watching I Love Lucy and see all these things. I didn't really care for the show, but it was interesting to see her actual character versus what she is on the show, and seeing the differences was actually kind of cool, and the character interactions between all of them was great. But the conclusion and just the stakes and the story and the length just didn't it left my brain. I don't even remember what happened. Yeah, I'm feeling like a 5 out of 10 on this movie. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I'm excited to see more movies that come out this year. I'm gonna be watching Batman, the new Batman movie. I'm pretty excited for that. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys next time.